So today we're going to be working in our drawing packet. We're going to start with page 1 and 2. So I'm going to flip it over. And here's page 1. And part A says that we have some value vocabulary that we just need to review. So value, again, is the lightness or darkness of a color. Okay? Tints are colors that have white added to them. Tones are colors mixed with gray. And shades are colors with black added to them. Okay, this is stuff that's just kind of a review from what we've talked about, right? So now number 1 here says that you're going to use all the drawing pencils to create a value scale. Label each value on the line above the box. One box will be labeled white, and then label this box W. Okay, so you have a pencil kit out in front of you, and I'm going to open this up. A lot of you have this little slip of paper. If you do not, I'll make sure you have one for the future. But this little slip of paper tells you everything that's going to be in your pencil kit. So in there, let's start pulling them out, and I'll go through it with you. You should have a little pink eraser. Okay, so the next thing that you should have is a 6B pencil. So I'm just going to lay out my pencils, and here's how you can tell. The 6B is written on the back side of the pencil. It's a number and letter. Okay. Some of them are labeled 6B, and some of them are labeled as a 600 or black pencil. Okay, so look for your 6B. Then you should have a 4B pencil. Okay, so look for those. Then you should have a 2B or a B pencil. So one year we just ordered kind of goofy, so it's either a 2B or a B pencil. Okay. Okay. And then you should have a HB or a school pencil. So some of you have an HB drawing pencil or a school pencil. Then you should have a 2H pencil. Okay. And then lastly, you should have a 4H pencil. Now, fun little fact, when you go to sharpen them, try to make sure that you sharpen them opposite the side of the little label. Okay, that way we don't accidentally, when we go to sharpen this more, I'm going to lose my label, right? So in the future, if you ever get one that's not sharpened, make sure you sharpen opposite where the label end is, okay? So, okay, I'm going to put these off to the side now. Okay, yep. Okay, okay, check with these guys maybe, okay? Queen? Okay, so yep, it's probably right there. Okay, so I'm going to take my HB pencil, and right here on number 1, I'm just going to label these, but I'm going to use my little cheat sheet here, and I'm going to label them just like so. Okay, if you're left-handed, you're going to do the opposite of what I'm doing. So I'm going to start off on the left-hand side, and I'm going to write 6B. Okay, if you're left-handed, you're going to start with a W there. Okay, and you're going to go backwards. Okay, so I'm going to go 6B, 4B, okay, 2B. Okay, or you could write B, but I'm going to keep it as 2B. And then you have an HB, a 2H, and a 4H. Okay, and then my last box, it tells me here that I need to label this box W for white. Okay, so these next couple steps, I want you to just follow along. I don't want you to actually do it just yet. So please watch before doing it. So I have my 6B pencil here. And I'm going to coach you guys to use your pencils a little bit differently than you would a regular school pencil. Okay? The reason why I'm going to do this is it'll help improve your shading technique, as well as drawing pencils are a little bit different than a regular school pencil. Okay, so a couple ways that you can hold it. I've seen students grab it over the top and pinch it to shade. Okay? I've seen students get out on the end just like this. This is my preferred method. What I don't want to see though is a straight up and down really close to the tip of your pencil. Okay, so I know it's going to feel weird, but try and back up away from the tip of your pencil. Again, we're just watching for right now. And I'm going to go through with my 6B, and I'm going to start creating little ovals. I'm on the very side of my pencil, okay? And then what I'm doing here is I'm starting with medium pressure, and as I work to the right-hand side here, I'm going to start easing up on my pressure. So lightening up, not pressing on the paper very hard. And then now here's the trick. I'm going to go through halfway into my 4B with that light value and stop. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my 4B pencil. And again, I'm out on the edge. I'm going to try and match my value with my 6B. But you might notice that, oh, it's a little bit darker when I'm starting with medium pressure. So I'm going to keep moving forward, And then I'm gonna lighten up my pressure, go halfway into my 2B. Okay, this is what we call a jump. Okay, it goes from dark to light to dark, okay, or a gap. Okay, it's called a gap or a jump. So how we fix that is that you can take your 4B and start shading back into your 6B to match those values a little bit better. Okay, if you're still struggling with it, take your 6B again and go over the top one more time. Okay, so shading is all about layering, okay? So now you may begin. It's the same process throughout all of them, okay? So go ahead and get started. I'll walk you through it one more time for those that need it. I'm going to take my 6B, start with medium pressure, okay, getting out on the edge of my pencil, and slowly ease up on my pencil pressure as I work towards that 4B. Okay, if yours is a little bit darker than mine, that's okay. If it's a little bit lighter than mine, that's okay. And then I'm going to take my 4B, try and match values. Okay. Work forward, lighten up, halfway into the 2B. Okay. Then work my way back into my 6B. Even it out. Okay. Could you technically use one pencil and do this whole thing? Yes. Okay. But I want to expose you guys to see what it looks like using each one of these pencils, because for some of you, you are going to find a preference for which pencil you want to use. Okay. Yep. Okay. And I'm going to move to my 2B. I start by matching that value. Moving forward to my HB. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're just trying to match up our values. So I'm kind of like pressing hard here with this pencil. So I'm starting with the 2B and I'm pressing to try and match this 4B value, but it's a little bit darker, right? So I'm going to use my 2B to kind of overlap into my HB so that it's easier to transition. Does that make more sense? Okay. And then I'm just taking that 2B because I have this weird jump here, right? It goes from like dark to light to dark. And I'm going to try and push back into that 4B with the 2B to blend them together a little bit better. Okay. So the whole concept is to try and get it to blend, but also making sure that it's getting lighter as you're working to your white side. Okay. If they're all the same value and they're not getting lighter, then we have some issues, right? Okay, so now I'm on to HB. Starting with kind of a lighter touch. Once you get to HB, you might want to start drawing a little bit, or shading a little bit lighter. Okay, halfway into my 2H. Okay, push back into my 2B.
So HB is a normal pencil, right?
Yep, your HB is your normal pencil. Okay. Taking my 2H. If you mess up or goof up, that's why you have an eraser too, so you can always go back and erase as well. Okay, we're really working on our pencil control. Okay, this is a skill. Just like in a sport, you have to practice basketball, shooting hoops. You gotta practice your shading in art class. Okay, my last one is a 4H. Okay, when you get to your 4H pencil, you're as lightly as possible gonna drag it halfway into your white box. Okay, so barely touching the paper. Okay. If you have little lines outside of your box, you can take your eraser and just kind of clean up that edge. Okay. So last step would be, if you discover that you have some gaps or some jumps, go back and just try and blend them out, smooth them out, okay? Don't use your finger to do that, use your pencils. If you found a pencil like the HB, maybe you really like it as your filler pencil, and you can use it kind of to fill those in. Okay. Now we're on to number 2. So number 2 says, in the boxes below, illustrate each value making technique to create a mini value scale within the box. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're taking what's in the left and we're going to put it in the right, but I'm also going to help you guys build up your value as well. So I'm going to take my HB pencil and I'm going to start in the top right hand corner and I'm going to press kind of hard and make a thick line. And then I'm going to kind of keep that same pressure, a little bit thinner though. And then as I work towards my bottom left, I'm going to ease up on my pressure and make thin lines. So it goes kind of from thick and pressing hard to thin and barely pressing. HB, yep, I'm just using my HB pencil. Now, technically, you could just take hatching and just make lines that go in the same direction. Okay, but this is how you can build it up with value. So I'm using my school pencil.
Do we have to use the school pencil?
You technically don't have to, but it's a good middle tone. Yep.
I don't want to. I just don't know.
Okay, our next one is cross hatching. So we're just taking what we learned, hatching, and we're going to cross it over the top of each other. Okay, so we're going to do multiple hatching. So we're starting off the same way, pressing hard, okay, kind of making some thick lines, and then as you work towards bottom left, kind of start lightening them up. Okay, and now I'm going to start in the top left, work to my bottom right, same concept. Okay, so that way, looks kind of darker near the top, lighter near the bottom. And yes, technically cross hatching is just putting your hatching lines and then even going straight up and down. As long as they're crossing each other, that's technically cross hatching.
So you just do straight lines and then diagonals or crossing?
Okay, now we're gonna get to blending. Okay, I'm still gonna stick with my HB pencil because I like how I can manipulate it to darks and lights. So I'm gonna have, and I'm gonna switch my pencil grip to gripping it over the top. Okay, that's just my preferred method for this. That way I can get it nice and flat. And I'm gonna start here in the bottom because I'm copying what I see here. And in this bottom right-hand corner, I'm gonna start making those little ovals, pressing hard. And as I work towards this top left corner, I'm gonna start lightening up my pressure until I kind of get almost to the corner, and then I'm going to stop so that I can leave the corner white. It's all about pencil control. Okay, so I made little circle ovals. Now 2 ways that you can blend this even more. You could take your finger, and now you can start going over the top of it and blending it, right? You just take your finger, rub from the dark to the light areas. Okay, but the hard part is then you end up with the graphite finger, right? So another trick, and I realize you guys don't have them, but you could take a paper towel and you could do the same thing. You could start in the dark areas and push it towards the light area. And if you accidentally go too far, you can kind of use a little bit of an eraser there, but try not to do that, okay? Technically, that's another technique called rendering. So if you accidentally blend too much, don't be afraid to go back over the top, you know, and kind of fill in that darker area again. Okay, so that's blending. Stippling, we know about stippling, so I'm going to start with my HB here, and I'm going to try and cluster my stipples a little bit more in this bottom right hand corner, and then when I get towards the top left, I'm going to kind of try and space them out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put them close together down in this bottom right hand corner. And then just to make it even more noticeable, I'm going to take my 6B and make it really dark with those stipples down in the bottom right. And you don't have to use the 6B, but it kind of pushes it just a little bit more. Okay, it's the same thing with scumbling. Okay, and we know that scumbling is when we do the little C's. Okay, so I'm going to put them closer together down near the right and then spread them out a little bit as I get towards that top left. Okay, and then class, I want to be clear. Scumbling is not this. Okay, if your pencil stays on the table the entire time, that's not scumbling. Okay, that's scribbling. I know that's like very nitpicky, but that's how the art world works. So scumbling is actually picking up your pencil and making a little C. And if you want to push the value darker, you can take that 6B and do the same thing. You're just kind of filling in a couple of those dark tones near the bottom right. Just like how you see it there.
Can't you technically blend with basically all the things that we've done?
Okay, our last one is called rendering. Okay, I like this one. What I get to do now is I'm going to fill in the whole square with my one flat value of an HB pencil. And then I'm going to use my eraser as my tool to erase out the areas that I want to keep white. So it's almost like using your eraser as a pencil. Okay, so I'm going to fill it all in. Again, I like to go over the top with my hand position and fill it in with like nice big ovals. Okay, so my pencil's almost like a piece of chalk. That's one way to think of it. Fill it all in, one flat value. Take my eraser, and up in the top corner, if I want it to be whiter or erase out more, okay, I need to push harder. Okay, if I want it to be lighter, I'm going to ease up on my pressure, and then it'll be a little bit darker in value, and it'll kind of mush around for you. So that's how you can use your eraser as a blender as well. Okay, that's called rendering. And just to talk about the difference, blending is a technique that we'd probably use if we were trying to make like skin tone on a human face. Okay, versus rendering would be something that we would use if we were trying to make realistic looking hair. Okay, we would kind of add in all of our streaks using the different pencils, and then we would take our eraser and pull out the highlights of the hair. Okay, that's a technique that I'll show you guys later. Okay. All right, now we're on to page 2. So flip it over. Okay, so we got some more value vocabulary. So really what we're going to do is we're going to use this top vocabulary to help us figure out number 3. So number 3 here says, identify the different parts of value on the shaded forms. Write the answers on the provided blanks next to the forms. So when I look at this, the first one is a light source. That's where the light is coming from. It's the sun or light bulb. So I'm going to have you guys just draw those in really quick. And I make little weird looking half suns for my little sunlight areas. Okay, so that's where my light source is coming from. Okay, you can make little suns, whatever you want to do, a lamp, a light bulb, just a little icon up in the top left-hand corner of each one of those. Okay, yep. So that's the light source. Okay, the highlight is the lightest part of the form where the light is directly hitting the form. So when I look at these forms down here, the lightest part is definitely letter A. So letter A is going to be our highlight. Okay, let's look at the word midtone. Okay, midtone says the value that occurred between the highlight and the core shadow. Okay, well, I don't know what a core shadow is yet, so let's figure out what that is. Okay, core shadow is the darkest part of the form, or the area of the darkest shadow. Okay, so let's look at my forms down here. Okay, when I look at this, okay, C is actually the darkest part of the sphere. It's kind of hard to tell with the cube. Okay, my cone though, and my cylinder, it's letter C. So we're gonna go with letter C is gonna be our core shadow. Okay, we're still kind of undecided about midtones because when I look at between highlight and core shadow, okay, that could be B, but I also kind of think D kind of has a weird middle tone to it. So maybe I'll just hold off for a second there. Let's look at reflected light. Okay, reflected light that bounces off another surface back onto the form. Okay, so this makes sense for D to be the reflected light because if I can imagine light bouncing off the ground back onto the form, it's going to create that little light pocket where D is at. Okay, same thing here. If I had a little wall here, okay, light would be bouncing off the wall back onto the form to make it a little bit lighter there. Okay, so D is going to be reflected light. Okay, well that means that B probably has to be our midtone, okay, because that's happening between the highlight and the core shadow, right? So B is going to be our midtone. Well, that leaves cast shadow. Let's figure out what that is. Cast shadow is the shadow that's created by the form when light hits the form. So if I can imagine this light hitting this form, hey, this form is creating this cast shadow. E is going to be your cast shadow. Okay, let's just double check, make sure they're accurate. A, highlight, that should be the lightest part of the form. B should be the middle tone between the highlight and the core shadow, so C is our core shadow. D should be where the reflected light is, bouncing back onto the form. Okay, and then the cast shadow is created when light hits that form. Okay, so far it looks like it makes sense with all of my forms here, okay? All right, that means number 4, we're gonna practice. Use a light source, use any of the value making techniques to shade the shapes below into 3D forms. So we're gonna use these value making techniques to shade these into forms, okay? We're gonna start applying this vocab we just learned. So let's start off with our light source first. So I'm gonna put my little light source there, up in the top left-hand corner here of each one of these forms. And this first cylinder, we're gonna try and copy what we see here. So we're gonna try and make it look realistic. So we're gonna use blending, okay? So I like to work from the dark areas to the light areas. Now, as an artist, you can work from light areas to the dark areas, that's fine too. But I'm an artist that likes to work from dark and work towards the light. So what I'm gonna start with, if I look at my example, my core shadow is somewhere just off to the right of the middle area. So I'm gonna use my HB pencil just to get started. Kind of pressing hard, and I'm just gonna make kind of a dark strip. Okay. Okay. If I look at my example, okay, from C all the way to the right there, it's like a value scale. It just slowly gets lighter, right? If I go to the right, or to the left, sorry, it's also a value scale, okay? The only difference is that the one on the right is darker, doesn't get as light, and the one on the right gets light really, really fast, right? So I'm gonna take my HB pencil and I'm gonna try and create that. So I'm gonna just start making a value scale, so lightening up my pressure as I move to the right. Okay. And then moving to the left, I'm gonna try and do it super, super fast. I'm gonna try and get light really, really fast with my pressure.
We just leave it blank there.
Huh?
We just leave it blank.
So there is gonna be a blank spot for your highlight, yes. Okay. So that's what I got going on right now, just with my HB pencil. But now I want to push my core shadow to be darker. So if you need a little cheat sheet, you could use that little slip of paper. And my darkest value is my 6B pencil. So I'm going to use that one next. And I'm going to just fill in where I want it to be darkest. So that's my C area, or the core shadow. So just kind of where I started at, I'm going to make it just a little bit darker. Okay. Now if you have a gap or a jump, okay, you just have like one strip of black. Now we got to start doing our pencil pressure again and kind of evening it out. Okay. It looks like I'm getting a little tired, so I got to go back through with my HB and blend this out a little bit more. Okay, so you guys can actually see this is where I stopped. You don't have to draw that arrow, but that's where I stopped, okay? Okay, because this is a rounded object, okay, on this far left side, I know it's hard to see in our printed out copy, but it has a little bit of shading there, and it's pretty light. So I'm gonna use my lightest pencil, the 4H, just to put a little bit of a shadow on this left-hand side. And I'm gonna kind of make it a value scale towards my highlight area. So as I work to that highlight, I'm just gonna get it super, super light, so barely touching my paper. I should still have one little strip of white, so no pencil on there. If you accidentally put pencil on there, hey, use a little rendering. Okay, pull it out with your eraser if you accidentally do too much. My last step, I'm gonna have you guys just imagine, just to make it easier for you, that our light source is actually more front on to our cylinder. So we can take our HB and just make this top panel just a flat middle tone value. So I'm just gonna